Hiya guys and welcome back to the Average Pundits podcast, your home of all things Premier League. Back again with another very interesting podcast and probably one that's more relevant than, anything that we could possibly have come up with otherwise. This right now is leading the conversation in football in general, especially in Premier League football, soon to be probably leading the world in terms of sport. It's, a lot of things could be shaken up. As always, I am joined with Reese. How you doing, Reese?
I am good. Thank you to Chris, who filled in last week. But Joe, you are back here on the Average Pundits podcast, filling in for an extremely interesting podcast for us, covering a lot of, I think controversial could be the word if things spiral out of control in this Premier League crisis, as we are going to kind of label it here. If you are watching on YouTube or even listening elsewhere, make sure you go to our YouTube and subscribe, hit the notification bell, make sure that we hit 100 subscribers either by the end of October or if not, the end of the year. Just make sure we hit 100 subscribers. We need to ensure that the Average Pundits family keeps growing stronger. So, I think it's time that we get into this extremely interesting, I think is the word that we're going to use there. Interesting podcast to say the least.
Yeah, very true, Reese. And there's no other better way to start. I think firstly leading with what's kind of taken a more of a toll on Twitter. I've seen that's where I've seen a majority of the posts. Hashtag let fans in. That is kind of leading the sporting conversation in England at the moment. If you live under a rock or live outside of the UK, or if you are listening outside the UK, thank you very much. But Prime Minister Boris Johnson did announce the new 3-tier system for lockdown, plunging a lot of the North in a kind of really strange situation where no one really knows what's going on, but hopefully things will become more clear. But it has meant that restrictions are getting tighter once again. And there are a lot of industries which are they're teetering, and a lot of things that are struggling to survive, and no more than football as well, especially non-league football. A lot of lower end clubs are starting to see real problems with fans not being allowed into the ground. And although the Premier League clubs have significantly more money, the situation is still an issue in the Premier League. Obviously, fans aren't being allowed in the arenas, so the proper match day experience at the moment is pretty much dead. As full-time, university students, we are obviously very busy. Obviously, we've got assignments, we've got outside commitments, we've got work, that kind of thing. So getting to games is significantly tougher, but I'm sure a lot of people listening to this, a lot of people watching, hopefully can get to see their clubs as much as possible. And for, some of those people, it must be life-altering not being able to go every week, because football it's a religion, it's a passion, it's what we live for, it's what we live to talk about every week. And I'd love to be able to get to more games than I do, but unfortunately the situation that we find ourselves in the world, and also how busy things get, means I can't get to as many. But Reese, the impact on football fans not being able to go to games, it must be horrible at the moment.
I'm just going to add on to what you say, with everyone being busy, the whole climate at the moment. You also forget to mention ticket prices are so blooming high. So that's probably what drives some people to not go to games. But as you say, it's devastating for a lot of football fans to not be able to go to these games and to not be able to, it is a family experience where you go to the games. Like say, it's a lot of bonding experiences that people are missing out on. A lot of guys like to go to the football games with their brothers or their dads and go on, have a pie, have a pint, and experience the games as they come. And it's a real good thing to go season in, game in, game out. But also, it's not just going to hurt the fans. It's going to hurt the clubs as well. Like, it's going to really, really hurt the clubs.
Yeah, it's getting to the stage now where I feel like we're so used to now seeing the fans outside the arenas. And obviously, if you watch on TV, you can have match noise, you can have just silence. It's very strange, but we're kind of used to seeing it now. But it doesn't make the situation any better. I mean, even when you're watching at home, the fans do make the game. You want to hear the reactions. You want to hear people's reactions to what is happening. And right now, we're not getting that. I mean, everyone's reacting at home, but the atmosphere makes it, doesn't it? I mean, the players thrive off the atmosphere, and I think the fans do somewhat as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think they've started letting fans in Germany now. I remember seeing one of the Bundesliga games. They had I mean, they didn't have full capacity. Then no stadium in the next year or so is going to have full capacity. That's going to be the thing. But I think with clubs, they're going to have to start letting fans in soon because that's how they make the majority of their revenue, and that's how they survive. It's going to be what some of the and we'll probably get into the championship here in England a bit more later. But it's definitely how a lot of teams make their revenue, and again it feels like you have the community, and the club doesn't feel the same without the rest of the community. It's more than just the 11 players on the pitch and the 7 players on the bench. It's more than the coach and staff. It's more than the chairman. It's the entire fan base, like the millions of followers that they have on social media. It's the thousands of fans that travel up and down the country. And if hundreds of people can get into some sort of theatre, which is again what we're going to later, then surely we can allow maybe 10% or maybe even 20% capacity, especially if you have separate bubbles going. You say you have a house of 6 that want to go to a football match, have them segregated from another house of 6 or another sort of family or another two, like another couple. Like there are ways that people, like teams and everyone can get around it. It's just whether there are the measures in place. It's whether all the teams are on board. I know that there was the test game in the summer at Brighton and Chelsea, and that didn't. I mean, there's always going to be criticism when you are trying to make do in a pandemic, especially this one. And with that, it's going to be it's just inviting the spreading of the virus. Whereas if you do it safely and if you have these in place, you have specific seats available for these certain groups, it can be done. I don't know what you think about that, but it definitely can. I think it can anyways.
Well, no, I agree. I mean, I think specifically outside of the Premier League as well, I was very fortunate to get to some non-league football a couple of weeks ago, and that was, it was a good day out, but it was all spaced out and everything. But the non-league grounds sometimes can fill up massively, which is, where the problems are raised. But when I was there, it was done well, and it was done, cautiously as well. So I feel like if it can be done at a non-league ground, in the Midlands, I feel like it can be done exceedingly well at a stadium with even more vastly open space. I think it's doable.
Yeah, I think. The certain non-league football is good at doing that. It depends on the fan base, really. There are certain non-league football teams that do have a rather large fan base. The first one that comes to mind, the guys that were doing really well in the FA Cup qualifying, #United, their penalty shootout game that they won was not socially distanced in the slightest. Like you could see all of the fans going crazy and hugging each other and stuff like that. It was, I think that's the point that sometimes we forget as say if you're the normal football fans. I suggest that heavily in quotation marks. Like, we don't go and go to the stereotype of football hooliganism as one's put upon certain fans, and I think that aspect sometimes lets fans down, whereas you just want to go and watch a football game and experience that in itself. So I think when you are looking towards that sort of aspect, there is certain precautions you do have to take, but for normal football fans, it's kind of been ruined by that sort of aspect of being a football fan as well.
Well, I definitely think that there's certainly been a culture of that in the last 10, 20 plus years. There definitely has been elements of that. I think also the perception or the stereotype, as you mentioned, of that can also cause a lot of people to worry and think, okay, well, people are just going to lose their heads and go crazy. For the actions of some doesn't always reflect the actions of the many. So I think it's a tightrope, but it's definitely a conversation which I think is revolving around at the moment. You mentioned earlier something which happened at an event. If you haven't seen, again, if you've been living under a rock, it's kind of been blowing up on social media today. At the London Palladium, there was an organised event with Arsene Wenger, of all people. And he's on the stage kind of just talking, and people were allowed inside. Not really socially distancing, kind of all sat in rows and stuff like you would at any normal kind of theatre venue. And it was very weird to see, because you woke up, you look at the pictures and you think, when was this? Was this like pre-locked? No, this was the other day. And it's happening in London, which at the moment doesn't have the same restrictions as a lot of places in the north do. So it caused an awful lot of criticism, a lot from the sporting community. We saw big figures like Gary Lineker online come out, and he was definitely throwing his opinion in the ring. Other figures online, we were saying Piers Morgan was also very vocal, as he normally is on Twitter, about these kind of situations. But when you do have a movement so popular as this Let Fans In thing to try and get the sporting venues to go back up, all in the process of being safe, and you see an indoor venue in the capital which doesn't have these restrictions, I can definitely understand why it's rubbing some people the wrong way. Right now, I don't think there's been more of a clear divide in terms of what the people want versus what's being said. I think, there's an overwhelming divide in a lot of the topics which we're going to be talking about today, and this certainly is one of them. But I don't know about you, but how do you think you can really offer something like that in an indoor venue where people aren't really socially distancing, wearing their masks but not really socially distancing, and then not permit an outdoor venue to hold people at social distance level?
Well, it's one rule for one and one for another, because the government obviously, not to get too political, they obviously don't like the trying to. It's kind of they allow for certain aspects of life to go on with normal rules, but when it comes to certain people, and I don't want to mention anything, certain other people trying to get what they love back, it's it's not possible. As we know, football, as we'll come to mention, is kind of the working class sport. It's loved by all, and say the rules with fox hunting again, more than six people, were not. So again, without getting too political, it is that sort of mentality of one rule for one for another. And I'm sure Arsene Wenger will come out and say, "It was not my fault," but I don't understand what they were trying to do here. I don't understand what the situation was, and I know especially when you have a figurehead like Piers Morgan that is slating it. I do think it's a bit. I don't know. I don't quite know the word, to be honest, because it's baffling at this point in time.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? You see people coming out and talking about it, and you just think, how on earth was this allowed to go forward when you knew that it was going to get this much backlash from such a large movement? It's either all okay or it's not okay, isn't it? And right now, obviously, the virus is a real thing. It's a very real situation, and it is still ongoing. We're so far down the line now, but it seems like only yesterday this was all starting, but we've been in it for a long time now. But it is still going on. Just because things have changed, things have got less restricted and more restricted, nothing's gone away. We're still fighting it. And as a country, fingers can be pointed in loads of different directions when it comes to political reasons, but we're talking purely sporting. And right now, the fan bases aren't happy. And it's getting harder and harder to defend, the lack of their, not being fans to go back in stadiums whenever things are resuming. So what you guys think is very important to us as well. This is going to be quite an interesting topic if anyone has any opinions on it, and we will put links on our social media for you to throw your hat in the ring and see what you say. So please do get involved in what's going on with this stuff. We'll move on swiftly to another big thing, which is going to be happening in the Premier League. It's now announced, could be a potential U-turn, but I very much doubt that. £14.95, Reese, to pay for games which aren't being televised on Sky or BT. £14.95 pay-per-view for non-televised. I don't even know where to begin. How out of touch is the Premier League right now with its fans?
Extremely, because the thing is, right, me and you can sit here and be like, oh yeah, this is going to affect the Premier League. But then again, our teams are top end of the table. They're always going to be shown no matter what. You're always going to be able to see at least one game. Whereas, the teams at the bottom end of the table will have to wait until they play a Liverpool, a Manchester United, a Chelsea. And it's really annoying for those certain fans that because their team aren't being shown on television, they're going to have to pay. I mean, yes, it's not quite a ticket price of going to a game and spending maybe 50 quid on going and watching your team play, but then there's the thing of why should you have to pay to watch it in your own home? Certain other sporting, certain other sporting brands can, broadcasting services like BBC Sport can pick up these certain games. They can pay for the rights, and that is then more cash flow, more TV revenue again, which we'll get into later with the big debate in this podcast. And I think paying 15 quid for a Premier League game that you with no fans as well, like you pay. I mean, I guess in regards to maybe having a house full of people watching it, say if you've got a whole house full of crazy football fans that don't mind, say if you've got 5 people, that's £3 each. But then again, what if you've got that one sole person in the house that just wants to watch their team and absolutely loves them? They don't have they don't have the access.
No, it's a whole new kind of thing, which again, the phrase "out of touch," I just can't describe it. I mean, fans are already playing, and they've been paying a premium to watch football for years now. Obviously, ticket prices are rising continuously. It's harder for casual fans to go and see games. It's more in a status now for Premier League tourism and people who can afford these upper elite tickets. It's harder for the fans to get to games, but you're already paying a premium for Sky. You're already paying a premium for BT. You're paying for Amazon Prime as well, because Amazon Prime have a rights to a lot of the games during December this year for this campaign. So that's already 3 different platforms you have to buy if you're going to watch all of these games at home. Aside from that, some people can't afford that. Okay, what are we going to do? We're going to go to the pub, or we're going to go to a leisure centre, a community centre, that kind of thing. And we'll sit there and we'll buy a drink and we'll watch the football there. And the bars are under more and more scrutiny now. So, there's constant pressure. Northern bars that are in this tier 3 system, they can't go there. So they have to watch it at home. People are on furlough. They've got no money. Jobs are being lost still. Again, it gets political, but it's never been more expensive to be a fan of a sport. That's the situation that we're living in now. October 17th is the date where, this is going to be put into play. The first 5 games have been announced. Chelsea versus Southampton, Newcastle versus Manchester United, Sheffield versus Fulham, Leicester versus Villa, and West Brom versus Burnley. Those are the first 5 games which you're going to have to pay £14.95 for the privilege to watch one of them. And, not exactly the most fruitful games in here. I mean, probably the most exciting out of all of those, I'd probably say is Leicester Villa, because it's a bit of a Midlands derby. But
At a push.
at a push, yeah. But honestly, £14.95. I can't get it out of my head. You're making fans now pay pay-per-view events to watch no cup finals, no big sporting events, no Champions League, none of that. You're watching standard games in a league.
Yeah.
You're paying a premium for it. I think we're both pretty much in agreement that we're against this, and I think the majority of football fans that I've spoke to have been extremely baffled at why this is a thing. And it's a way to make more money, and if you talk at it from a business point of view, I'm sure you can find angles from every person saying, oh well, it's very interesting for business, it's going to but out of touch. That's all it is. It's out of touch. It's something that it's absolutely baffling me.
It is. Let me put this into perspective for people, right? So even if you've got one Premier League game that you've got to pay 15 quid for per month, okay, right? Amazon Prime, Netflix. I'm a fan of wrestling, the WWE Network as well, right? All of those subscriptions, okay, are all about £10 per month, okay? 15 quid for, like, say if you want to watch one game per month is outrageous because there's not a back catalogue of other things that you can watch afterwards. Say if you pay 1 month of Amazon Prime, 1 month of Netflix to watch one show, you've also got other options, or even, say Disney Plus is what, other people are watching. There's already a back catalogue of everything you could imagine for your needs. Say if there's a new TV series you want to watch, it's oh, that looks interesting. After that, you can go and watch something else. You can watch movies. This game, there's one game for £15. And if you are a team like West Brom, who aren't necessarily going to be playing on TV every single week, that's gonna mess with you. That's gonna mess with your pockets, because then you're paying upwards of what, £60, just under £60, just to watch West Bromwich Albion probably get spanked. And it's the fact, like, it's going to affect these clubs no matter what. Like the smaller tier clubs, those clubs that are up for relegation battles, the Burnleys aren't going to be great when it comes to this ruling, because again, they don't exactly show that the most exciting brand of football, so they're not going to be on TV as much, and that means I guess it's a way to show how the bigger fan base for certain teams is going to help them with their TV revenue.
Yeah,
Because
I mean, in a world where not everyone has the same, money, no one in the world all have the same amount of money, do we? We don't live in that society. Everyone earns different amounts. Not everyone can afford to keep up the hobby of liking a sports team. Liking a sports team, I don't think needs to be this massive tax. It's becoming a tax just to support a football club, which is sad. It's sad, man.
really is.
It really is sad. And and this is something which is being pitched, and hopefully this is the end of it. But you don't know where it's going to go. We've got more to go on to, which again is changing more of the way that we're going to be watching football, and the more of the way which we're going to be watching the league that we love.
Yeah, and
It's the whole market's changing.
the thing is, with this £15 thing, normally say if you, even in like the lower tiers of football, you go and watch, pay 15 quid to go and watch Burton Albion, right? You pay for the experience. You go to the pub, it's on the TV, it's free in the TV. You pay £15 for your drinks. It's the experience of being out and having fun with, socially distanced, by the way, socially distanced, drinking your pints, having a laugh with your mates that are, that also love football. It's paying for the experience. Whereas this, you're paying to sit on the sofa and then also having to go to the corner shop and buy some other drinks and some snacks to actually even enjoy it. I don't know how many times I've sat through 0-0 draws that I've just sat through sat on my phone for, because certain games can be boring. And if you're paying £15 to watch two teams counter-attack poorly, and it ends up with a drab draw, it's going to be a waste of money. And I don't think you can necessarily guarantee quality. There's not going to be the Chelsea West Brom 3-3 games every week. There's not going to be Liverpool Leeds 4-3 every week. There's going to be certain games where you pay 15 quid and you're like, that was rubbish. I could have spent that way better. I could have invested that into my life way better.
Yeah, no, and genuinely, that's the thing, isn't it? I mean, the last thing you'd want is to pay this money and then watch an underwhelming 0-0 draw. That would be horrendous.
No one wants to pay to see Burnley.
It would be incredibly underwhelming, but this is the situation we've got, and the Premier League could be shaped up even more by the rumored Big Six project, which is again something we will touch on now. There's an awful lot to divulge in this. We'll try and keep it nice and concise so we can give you guys the facts and give you guys what we know. Reese, the Big Six. Who are the Big Six?
So this, I think we should go by the official name here, Project Big Picture. This is something from Liverpool's owners and Manchester United's owners, John Henry, and also Joel Glazer. I mean, Joel Glazer, we know, his name's been ringing out from Manchester United fans' mouths for years, wanting him out of the club. I mean, John Henry's done a lot of good business for Liverpool, but again, both very, very wealthy people. So when we're talking about Project Big Picture, the Premier League, these are sort of the sort of guides, or sort of the rules that this will bring to the Premier League. And if you want to hit us with your suggestions or any sort of opinions about this, please make sure you hit us in the comments if you're watching on YouTube, or hit us on social media, on our Instagram and our Twitter. So the Premier League, scraps 2 teams. It's reduced to 18 teams. I'm not sure how that's going to benefit the Premier League, really. The EFL Cup and the Community Shield will be scrapped. So 250 million will go to the EFL, and 100 million will go to the FA. 25% of Premier League clubs' annual revenue will go to EFL teams. As we've just mentioned, the ticket price is already going to come in, but that is also a part of this new change that's coming in due to this pandemic. And I think the big thing to rule from here is that power would lie with these teams that have been in the Premier League the longest, and this list goes as follows. So obviously Liverpool and Manchester United, they are the spearheads for this movement. Then it lies with current Premier League leaders Everton, going in then with Arsenal, Chelsea, Manchester City, Southampton, Tottenham Hotspur, and West Ham United. The last team of which aren't exactly in favour of this going forward. Only 6 of those teams need to vote for certain rules inside the Premier League to go ahead. Joe, what are your thoughts on this on face value before we dive a bit into why we think it's a good and bad idea for certain aspects?
Well, I mean, we were discussing a few which we'll touch on, and there are negatives and there are positives. That obviously right now it's not a secret that we are United and Liverpool fans, which are fans that are at constant odds and ends. Friends above all else, but we're definitely rivals in terms of the football.
I don't think we're friends. We're acquaintances at most.
Work acquaintances. But at the same time, it's, obviously football odds and ends constantly between United and Liverpool. But right now, because these are the clubs which are leading the conversation, aside from being a fan, you have to consider everything else which is going on, because when your club is the one that's spearheading it, you may not notice a lot going on for your club, but we're talking in this, we don't have a United or a Liverpool hat on, this is a football hat, so this is talking about everything. In terms of the project, the top 6 essentially having the 6 they need to vote to have all the authority can be so damaging to the rest of the Premier League, because at the same time, if something gets voted on and these Premier League teams get ousted out, that their say is gone, their voice is gone. It only needs to be these ones which decide, and they're going to basically just have the rule of the roost, essentially. And you think about some of the voting, some of the things which could potentially come up in this process could be completely changing for football. One of the things that I saw suggested, and this again it's only rumours, it's only just paper talk, but having promotion and relegation scrapped completely. And then the league becomes almost like a franchise league, like you see in America with the NFL, which is American football, if you're not familiar. So you would essentially see the kind of money and the advertisement that the NFL have over here in the Premier League. And there's a lot of money in both leagues. But the NFL is a very, very successful franchise league, very successful. But at the same time, promotion and relegation have been a huge part of English football for as long as English football's been going on in terms of leagues. It's something to play for. For these clubs that are lower down in the Premier League, it's something to aspire to. We want to get our club as high as possible, and we want to touch the Premier League trophy. For clubs in the Premier League, every year it's about competing for that trophy. It's about competing for European slots, and it's about essentially, if you're a player at a club, you're maybe angling for a move, you want to go to the top of the Prem, you want to essentially make yourself a Premier League legend, a Premier League icon. All the fans have known that system for a very long time. As long as it's been called the Premier League, and even before that, there's been promotion and relegation. If you scrap that, you're scrapping a tradition, and you're scrapping hope for these teams lower in the Premier League, lower down from the Premier League, rather. You're scrapping hopes for the Championship, for League One, League Two, and even lower than that. You're honestly changing the fabric of what we know as football. So I think something like that, it has the potential to be a thing, and I think it could be it could take a lot of the magic out of it. We like seeing people come up. We like seeing people go down. It's part of the fun. And it can be very beneficial to the teams that are in the top. You're like, okay, well, we're not going anywhere. We're cushy. But it doesn't give any other clubs any hope anymore. That's something which I would hate to see for football. Absolutely hate to see. I think it would be terrible.
It would. As certain Liverpool, Manchester United fans, we can certainly sit here and say that I don't think it's a very good idea. Although, if you do look at the big picture, I'm going to list a few of the positives, and maybe you can just give a response to certain ones that you find interesting. So, as I mentioned before, the EFL is going to benefit highly from this, and they will have more financial stability. Due to the pandemic, they're not going to have a lot because they, as I said before, certain clubs do rely on the fans as their main source of income. So them having a bit more. I mean, I think at the moment they have, I think it's 4% of all Premier League annual income, and upping that to 25 is going to help them because certain clubs like Liverpool and Manchester United and Man City now, they don't need it, do they? Necessarily, they are arguably Manchester United. Let's say, arguably the biggest club in the world. You go to any country that is football mad, you will find at least one person wearing a Manchester United shirt. Ticket sales, throw them away. Merchandise sales and TV revenue, that is where the money is for Manchester United, the most marketable club in England. And the EFL clubs may not necessarily have that. You see, Bolton were in real dire troubles. I mean, Bury as well. They had to go under because they hadn't got the financial stability. I mean, this was pre-pandemic, but you see that certain teams might not be able to survive this. And this big picture does actually, it does what it says on the tin. It's, it's more than just the Premier League. It is more. It's English football, and I think this is what they are trying to sort of say is like this is English football. This is our turf, and we're going to fight to keep English football alive. So yeah, that was one of the positives. Like the EFL is going to benefit a lot. I mean, they don't reap the benefits of TV revenue as well, like the Premier League clubs do as well, which is what say with this £15 thing. If they are going to keep doing this for an extended period of time, then it's going to benefit EFL clubs as well because that revenue is also going to them. And also, it's sort of I think as well that they're putting the £20 cap on all away tickets. I think is that what I've heard. So I mean, it's going to be cheaper to eventually, when you get a chance, to go and say if we're in Worcester right now, it'd be easier to go to see Liverpool or Manchester United play at Villa Park, or say it's easier to go and see your team in the away end and sort of be a shadow fan for a little bit. I don't know what you think about those. Those are some of the little positives I have picked out. Mainly being the EFL and something good for English football, but. I think there are a few positives rather than just looking at all the negatives. Finding a balance is sort of what Chris taught me about last week in the Liverpool run.
Yeah, it certainly is about finding a balance. It's a very good point. The £20 away ticket thing, that's news to me. I wasn't sure that was even in the conversation. It almost seems too good to be true there. There's so much money to be made on away days, so that'd be absolutely fantastic. But I'd imagine the tickets would sell like absolute, sell like anything, wouldn't they? They'd be gone in seconds. But also the money going lower down into the leagues is the big thing. That's the big positive because it's these smaller teams with these devout fan bases of fans who are really suffering because they can't go and see the football live. That's all they're dying to do. They're dying to go to these games. And like you said, United, arguably the most marketable, I think, only in England challenged by Liverpool. I think the two they are the titans of the league, but Chelsea, Arsenal, Manchester City, these three as well, huge. Tottenham, absolutely colossal. These clubs don't need always the ticket sales because, like you said, merchandising is far too good. There's so much money to be made elsewhere, and the TV rights, the money's eye-watering. So the money in these big clubs, and a lot of clubs in the Premier League don't rely on the ticket sales. But going down the league, the ticket sales are crucial. And if that money isn't coming in at the moment, then this potential, 25% of the revenue and 250 million being flooded back down the lower leagues, it could save clubs. It could literally save clubs. And I feel like that has a lot of good. So I won't lie, on face, that's fantastic. On the counter, I'm going back talking about this power thing. It restricts power. It gives the power to the top of the league. And obviously, if you are an owner, if you're a shareholder, whatever, of course you're going to want your club to have power and you're going to want your club to vote on important things. But you don't want it to be easy as well. You want the league to be neutral. The Premier League, you never know what's going to happen every year. We've seen this constantly. We've seen underdog teams get promoted and do incredible. In recent years, we've seen recently promoted Southampton teams doing incredible, Wolves teams, Sheffield, only last season, having an incredible season. We saw Leicester come up and win the Premier League only, not even like half a decade ago now. It's crazy. And this is the league that we watch every. This is the league that we love. This is the league that we talk about every single week because we love it that much. And we love seeing the caliber of football. And you don't want that league affected. You don't want it to become an easy ride because you support a big club. And, just for supporting a big club as well, you don't want to have that target. You don't want to be thought of as like, oh, yeah, your club's just got the easy ride. And, the big clubs arguably have that anyway. Why would there want to be more of a target on their backs? I would much rather see an open play. If they were voting on just helping out the lower leagues, I mean, that's a no-brainer. You want to see these clubs survive because you want to see these clubs get to the Premier League because you want to keep it fresh and interesting. But at the same time, a league where there's a monopoly of power just up at the top, it's scary, man. It's scary. It's scary for lower leagues. It's scary for smaller clubs in football. Scary for lower leagues in the Premier League and lower clubs in the Premier League rather. And it's interesting, but like I said, having a franchise league like the NFL, if that was something that was implemented over in England, I'd hate it.
Yeah, I can't help but agree, to be honest. But then, this is what I was going to say just before. I mean, this is a massive negative. Okay, so yeah, the Premier League is basically. I mean, Liverpool and Manchester United are basically sugarcoating the fact. Being like, oh yeah, EFL clubs can have 25% of our thing, but you're not getting promoted. It's exactly it. So there are ways that EFL clubs are going to be benefiting from this, but then the massive thing of, oh yeah, we want to compete in the biggest division in England, but we don't get the chance to. But okay, here's our 25% from all the Premier League clubs though. So we're still going to be, fairly rich, but then they don't have the 100 million that they get for winning winning promotion, So I feel like that's a big takeaway that I think a lot of people aren't going to be looking into if the relegation system and promotion system is scrapped. Especially, why they're reducing them to 18 teams? What's the point? What is the point? It's ridiculous.
Honestly, it is. Honestly, a lot of the things that are being proposed, it is absolutely baffling. And, again, like Reece said at the start of this is something where we encourage, your guys' interaction. We want to know what you guys think of this. So check our social medias, get involved in the comments of this, but check our social medias predominantly because we're going to hopefully lead a few conversations on social media regarding this. One last thing to touch on. There's another thing in football which has been discussed for quite a while, and I feel like it's been something which is always rumored and is discussed in quiet, in dark corners. It's not something which is being too openly led, but it's something which a lot of fans fear could be where football is heading. I'm sure there are some fans out there who would love to see it, but I'm sure there's plenty who maybe feel the same. A football super league consisting of all of the top elite clubs in the world, the Liverpools, the Barcelonas, the Real Madrids, Bayern Munichs, Manchester Cities, all of these big clubs which are coming first and second every season in these big clubs across the world, PSG, Atletico Madrid, Juventus, competing in one league for a whole season of basically traveling to and from abroad, probably has to be after COVID, but maybe not. A Super League is definitely something which has been discussed, and it's something which you never know we could see in our lifetimes. And again, I'll let you go first on this, Reece. I've got my own opinions, but I'll let you go first on this. What Super League? What do you think?
Super Cup, ooh, super. Would I like one? Nope. I mean, we've got the Champions League, okay? I mean, as we mentioned before, they want to scrap the EFL and Community Shield. This gives a lot more game time for this Super Cup to come in. And yeah, it'd be great, on occasion to see, Lionel Messi, more chances to see these world class players on home turf and seeing your players against the very best to see how your teams would do. But what is the again? I'll bring out a point of what I said in the last topic. What's the point? There isn't. There is no point in. Yes, it's going to bring tons of money from outside fans. It's going to exposure, so much exposure to teams with a lot of exposure already. Like that's the point I'm going to have raised. Is like, why do you need more exposure? Why do you need more money? What you've got millions and millions and millions already.
And what it is what it's taking these super, huge clubs in England, in Spain, in Italy, outside of the leagues they compete in, and putting them in another league, making it even harder for fans to turn up every week. And obviously, again, you'll have home and away games and stuff like that. But these fans, these season ticket holders who travel to and from to all sorts of games around the world and around the country predominantly, but also when it comes to European competitions around the world. How on earth is it conceivable for the average football fan to carry this on?
Yeah.
I mean, the thought of it on face, it's like, oh, okay, I wouldn't mind seeing, this amazing league full of all of these amazing clubs playing every week. But realistically, it's just not viable. It would take that. I mean, the Champions League would have to be scrapped. Obviously that goes. The Europa League, that goes as well. What is the point? Are you going to just turn football into a world competition? You need leagues in your own countries. You need to see, because again, there's so many things wrong with it. How on earth do underdog teams, they hardly get the chances anymore. We won't see the magic of the Premier League. The Premier League would be dead. The day that happens, football in England, I feel like it's the funeral of football in England.
We don't want the Premier League becoming League One. We don't want it becoming a farmers' league. Okay. What you were just saying, the magic of underdog stories, okay? Last season, Sheffield United fighting for that place in Europe, fighting for that place in the Europa League. If that's scrapped and there's just the same teams over and over again, that competition is going to get boring real quick. So I don't know who's coming up with this idea. Who is behind the idea of this abomination of a competition?
No, genuinely, it's a conversation, I think, being led by a lot of the upper elites behind clubs. I feel like it's something which I don't think is like I said, it's never exclusively been like, okay, this is what we want to happen, but it's always something that's behind the Iron Curtain. It's been very shielded, but I feel like one day, it might not be soon, it might be someone down the line, it will be proposed properly. And again, it would probably benefit a lot of big clubs to do it, but also, how is it viable to be competing against calibers of like Bayern Munich, currently Liverpool and Man City, Real Madrid every single day, every single match day? It's not viable. You need to be facing these different level of clubs. I think, if every time Liverpool have to face Man City and they're like, okay, right, this is going to be a tough game, they'll have to turn up and face United and think, okay, we can win this, which is unfortunately the situation that, United are in the moment. But you see what I mean by that? They need to have a variation of the games. If you're just playing constantly high caliber level football every single week, the players are going to be burnt out completely. And also, it's going to be significantly hard. I mean, you will see, I guess, who the titans of world football will be. It would certainly confirm that if you can handle that, for an entire season. But God, you've got to give them a rest, haven't you?
Why not just a one-off tournament? Like,
it would be amazing if they made a one-off tournament every year.
Yeah.
That could be fantastic.
A one-off tournament every year. You scrap the Super Cup, right? Well, scrap the initial whoever wins the Champions League and the Europa League. Just make a one-off bracket that's drawn exactly like the Champions League, but for group stages. Maybe like a round of 32. Play one game in each round. Scrap the two legs, right? Say at the end of every season or at the beginning, instead of having pre-season friendlies, have a pre-season world-class tournament. Who wouldn't watch that?
Pre-season as well. Or this is controversial though. It's tough. Keep the Champions League. Champions League is a cup where we can see the best of Europe compete against each other every week. The Europa League is where we can see like the second best of Europe competing every week.
And Arsenal.
and Arsenal, and occasionally United when we're in there. It's a no-brainer, man. It's a no-brainer. It's a controversial topic, but it's, again, we want to know what you guys think about a proposed Super League.
I just can't. The thing is, right, before we segue, I think it's great to say some of the stories that have come through the Champions League, like, and even the Europa League. Fulham getting to the final of a Europa League, and these tournament styles that have underdogs that have come through and won so many tournaments. It's like the only tournaments that we're going to have that in. Say if there is the branded the Super Cup tournament style that I have, I've proposed instead. There's going to be everyone's a favourite. Everyone's a favourite. Yeah, it's unpredictable. That means there's different winners each time. But then again, like, you don't give opportunities to a Wolves to come in and then potentially win the whole thing. It's going to be one of those things that it's just going to be the big teams, and it's just going to have the small little teams looking on and be like, we could be there if we had rich owners like everybody else in that tournament. It's just one of those. For me, it's a no. As Joe said, please let us know what you guys think. Maybe you're not as hot-headed as we are about it, but I don't know what I hate more: the idea of a Super Cup or Roberto Firmino.
Tough decision for Reeves. But as we said, please do get involved. As we mentioned at the start of this podcast, we are very, very close to hitting that subscriber goal. If you watch on YouTube, please do drive it up. We really need the support. Anything that we can get, we appreciate every like, every subscribe. It really does mean a lot. So please do keep up with that. As always, you can get a hold of us on Twitter at Pundits Average, on Instagram at The Average Pundits. Get a hold of our Facebook page at the same name. You can access us on Spotify, you can access us on Apple Music, YouTube as well, obviously. And if you want to get involved with us and come on the podcast potentially, you can get a hold of us at theaveragepundits@outlook.com. But as always, Reece, thank you very much. It's been a very good return. A very big topic to talk about and a very important topic.
I'm glad you're back. Chris was a good co-host, but he doesn't quite compare to the roller broadster, if I do say so. So it's a very interesting topic. So something that needs to be talked about, something that everyone needs to be talking about, something that needs to shed light on these topics. So I think we've done our part, even as average pundits. It's something that the professional pundits aren't going to do.
There we go, guys. Thank you very much for joining. And as always, we will see you next time.